Hey kids, Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Now in the last month or so I've been lucky enough to borrow both the KTM 790 Adventure R and the BMW F850GS Adventure, both mid-sized adventure bikes. So if you're in the market for one of those and you want to find out which one's the best, stick around and stay tuned. So in my time with each bike, I got to ride them in all sorts of conditions on all sorts of roads. I rode them on the motorways, I rode them on country lanes, I rode them at night, I rode them in the rain and so on. Really got to know the pros and cons. I also worked out cost of ownership for each bike as well. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through step by step in the various categories. I'm going to score each bike out of 10 for how I think they did in each category. And then at the end of the video, we'll come back again, we'll tot up those totals and we'll see which bike won. So riding position, seat comfort and protection on the KTM 790 Adventure R then. Well, fundamentally the bike is very comfortable. The seating position is absolutely lovely on it. Your legs are tucked up in a little bit of a sporty position, but nothing too extreme. Nice wide handlebars and nice upright. It's not doing your back in or anything like that. So seat position is lovely. The seat itself is a KTM, so it's quite hard and it's a bench seat. But as it goes, it's not that bad, but I have ridden better. Where this bike really doesn't do well is on the protection front. The Adventure R comes with this little screen on the front and high speeds, as I've said before in previous videos on this bike, it really doesn't do anything for protection. After about 65 miles an hour on motorways and stuff, you get so much vibration off the screen, the protection's awful. So yeah, weather protection's rubbish, but comfort is pretty good. So I think overall on that one, I'd give the KTM 790 Adventure R 7 out of 10. Nice to see I'm joined by a white van as ever. Anyway, seat comfort, riding position and protection on the BMW then. Well, this is something where the BMW GS's score, whether it be the big ones or this, the F850 GS Adventure. Seating position is absolutely spot on. Legs are in a slightly sporty position, not too much, very similar actually to the KTM in that front. The seat itself very comfy, and on this GS Adventure it's the big bench seat, you can move around, so whether you're tall or short you'll be able to find yourself a comfortable position. Handlebars are nice and wide. Feels very familiar to me, this seating position feels exactly the same as the big GS's, the 1250s. So riding position is great, seat comfort is great too, and weather protection, well, you've got this incredible bulbous front end on here, so the lower half of your body is completely protected by all this fairing and bodywork, and then the wind protection works really well as well. Even though this is a relatively small looking screen, this brilliant adjuster that means you can just move it up and down on the fly, it says, struggling, there you go, with it in the up position, even on a motorway, it does protect you from a lot of the wind blast. So on comfort and protection, the BMW gets 9 out of 10. Nothing's perfect, but this is pretty close, so 9 out of 10 for the BMW on that. On the KTM, the engine, yeah, it's pretty smooth actually for a big old twin. Got a brilliant quick shifter up and down the box on here, and the acceleration is all there. It's got plenty of low down grunt, it's tuned lower down than its brother the 790 Duke, which has got more top end, but this accelerates very well indeed. So in terms of acceleration and smoothness to engine, I would give the KTM, I think I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Okay, the BMW engine smoothness, power and acceleration, nothing behind me. I'm in second gear, roller on. Yeah, absolutely flies. Very difficult actually to choose between this and the KTM in terms of acceleration. KTM might just have it on acceleration. Smoothness, the big twin on here feels lovely and smooth, and there's no lack of power when you're on the motorway either, so yeah, pretty nice all round. I think the KTM might just have it on acceleration though, probably due to its slightly lighter weight. So the BMW, I think I'm going to give it 7 for that one. 7 for the BMW. Right, gearbox on the BMW. Got the quick shifter both up and down. Here we are, look, doing 54 in 4th, up to 5th, up to 6th, very smooth. Off the throttle, let's come down. Yeah, lovely and smooth. Nothing wrong with this gearbox on here. Much better than the Boxer gearbox, it has to be said. Nice and smooth, and the quick shifter works a treat. So for Gearbox, hello white van, the BMW is going to get a 7. Only because, thinking about the smoothness, there is a little tiny bit of vibration, nothing untoward, just normal twin stuff. It's no worse or better than the KTM in that respect, but yeah, 7 for engine smoothness and gearbox. On the KTM, the gearbox is really nice. It's got this up and down quick shifter, works nice and smoothly. Just going to drop down using the clutch. Clutch is lovely and smooth as well. Not that light, the clutch, but it's not obviously it's not difficult to use or anything like that. You don't get any false neutrals with the gearbox. I've had absolutely no issues all the time with the I've had the bike with the gearbox. So and because the quick shifter is so good, I'm going to give the KTM 9 out of 10 for gearbox. Clear. Handling on the KTM is really one of its strong points. It feels beautifully light, this bike. When you're absolutely giving it loads through the twisties, then she feels beautiful. Unfortunately for me, handling off-road, and this is the off-road version of the bike's just a little bit too tall for me, so she drops a mark there. So handling on the KTM 790 Adventure R, I think I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Handling on the GS Adventure is really nice actually. It's a big old bike, but you can hustle it through these corners. Not quite as agile feeling as the KTM, it has to be said, but nonetheless still lovely handling, nothing untoward about it whatsoever. I can't remember what I gave the KTM. This doesn't deserve to get quite as much, so I think I'm going to give it 7. Quick test of the brakes on the KTM. Yeah, very good indeed. Front brake is perfect, really good at stopping you. Let me just try the rear brake. Actually, the rear brake is pretty strong. Rear brake, of course, mainly used for trailing into corners and things, but it's still perfectly good as a stopper. I'll give them the brakes on the KTM 9 out of 10. Alright, on the BMW, time to check the brakes. Nothing behind me. Let's try the front brake. Yeah, a little bit spongy to start with actually. You had to put it quite hard to bring the front up. Let's just try that one more time. Nothing behind. Yeah, it's okay, but not eye-popping. And the rear brake, yeah, works pretty well actually. So yeah, the brakes are perfectly good, not absolutely cracking though. I think I'll go with 7 on the brakes as well. I hope I'm not making these all 7s. Okay, so to suspension on the BMW GSA. Well, this of course has the very clever dynamic ESA top-notch suspension on the Beamer. You can adjust it between dynamic and road as well, and you can physically feel the bike going up and down when you do that. And it just makes the handling top-notch as well. Makes for a very comfortable ride. The suspension on this really is difficult to beat, so I'm going to give the suspension on the BMW 9 out of 10. On the KTM 790 Adventure R, it's got the fully adjustable suspension, which makes it great for off-road, and actually it's pretty good on-road as well. Suspension is one of the 790 Adventure's strong points. It's not electronic or anything like that, but it does feel nice and enhances the handling. So I think I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 for suspension.
Okay, cost of ownership for each bike then, and the details of how I came to the figures for cost of ownership will be in the in-depth reviews, which I'll either be posting soon, or you can have a look on my channel and you can see the in-depth reviews for each bike and see how I came to these figures. But in summary, for the KTM, that came out at £41.69 a month cost of ownership. That's insurance, tax and servicing costs. Doesn't take into account things like depreciation or anything like that. And for the BMW, that came out on the same calculation for insurance, tax, servicing, £60.94. So the BMW, 20 quid a month more expensive than the KTM. Having said that, both of those prices, and I've done a number of these calculations, are both quite good. That's quite good value actually. So they both score quite highly. So in this case, the KTM wins because it's about a third cheaper a month. So I'm going to give the KTM 9 points. I'm going to give the BMW 7 on cost of ownership.
Looks are a very subjective thing, aren't they? And I have to say, I don't find this particular version of the GS Adventure that attractive to look at. I think this TE paint scheme isn't so good. I prefer the rally paint scheme, like the bike that I borrowed when I first did my first impressions review on the bike. That looked much better, I think. And GSs in general have got a sort of face that only a mother could love, haven't they? I've come to terms with the 1200 that I own, but this one I must admit I don't find that attractive, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, but that is, as I say, a very subjective point. You might like the looks of it, you might hate it. 7 out of 10 for the Beamer for me. Looks of the KTM? Well, I've said before, I'm not a big fan of the way that KTMs look in general, with the exception of a couple. I do like the 390 Duke, and I do like the Super Duke R. This is my next favourite KTM in the looks department. It's still not an absolute stunner though. It's not a bike I want to look back at. Not helped by the little screen. Not helped by the... I just don't really like the KTM orange paintwork. So I'm sorry KTM, I'm going to give you 6 out of 10 on looks. So to electronics on the BMW F850GS. Well, one of the things I like that BMW have done with this of the smaller GSs, they've laden it with all the same electronics as its big brother, the 1250 GS Adventure, or pretty much all the same. So it's got the keyless ride, it's got the amazing TFT. I don't want to go on about TFTs, but the BMW one is the best that I've seen in terms of clarity. The brilliant sat-nav integration. It's got all the electronics you could possibly want. Class-leading ABS and traction control. It's got the amazing electronic suspension. Did I mention keyless ride? Quick shifter, basically all the good stuff and much more besides. So for electronics on the GS Adventure, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 as well. Okay, electronics on the KTM then. Well, I'm pleased to say the KTM has the electronics you definitely need. ABS and traction control. And the traction control on this is pretty clever. It's got the mode that allows you to dial in as much slip as you want. So the traction control is pretty clever. But one of the things the bike doesn't have as standard is cruise control. I think that's a bit of an omission. And also, whilst not strictly in electronics I suppose, I find the heated grips button absolutely rubbish. And the TFT, although it's quite a nice presentation, it's not as good as the best out there. So electronics wise, 7 out of 10 for the KTM.
Okay, what about cost to buy the bikes then? Well, very difficult because you need to compare like with like, of course, and both these bikes have a number of extras. So what I'm going to do, in order to compare like with like, sort of, I'm just going to go by the base price that it says on the web. Okay, so I've made a note here. The KTM base price is £11,099 and the BMW base price is £10,600. So the BMW wins this marginally. I think both those prices, again, given the facilities and the types of bikes you've got, are pretty good. That's a lot of bike for the money. But the BMW narrowly marches ahead on that one, so I'm giving the BMW 8 points and I'm giving the KTM 7. Okay then, so by my analysis we can see then that the BMW has it just by the slightest whisker on the points that I did, which isn't very scientific, it's just my opinion. It only came out as 1 point ahead, so very, very close indeed. What is clear is that both bikes are absolutely brilliant bikes. I think they're pretty good value for money given what you get for them. And the trick to this, of course, if you are in the market for one of these, is to try them both yourself. But if it was my money, I'll probably take the BMW, but it's very, very marginal. Alright, I hope you've found that video of some interest. If this is the first time you've been to the Biston and Flyer, I don't just do bike reviews, but I also do the odd live stream on this very setup here. I do things like trips and tours at home and abroad. I do stuff in the garage on how to look after your bike. I do reviews of new bikes. Basically anything and everything to do with motorcycling, I try and cover it here on the Biston and Flyer. It'd be fantastic if you'd hit that subscribe button and that way you'll join me on the next video. Okay, that's it for now. I hope that was of some interest and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Till then, this has been the Biston and Flyer. Cheerio.
Doesn't matter whether you're on a BMW or a KTM, I always attract a white van. Must be me.